Hello, everyone. It is Monday morning. We hope that everyone had a great weekend. It's time for Footprints Forward, uh, where we are getting together with our family members and we're trying to come up with ways to support everyone when it comes to uh, mental health and thoughts of suicide because it comes in many, many, many different packages, and we want to make sure that there's always something out there who, no matter what you are, no matter what you do. So, if you have any suggestions, we would ask you to please do us a huge favor. And there is a QR code right up in the corner, and we're going to ask you to go on ahead and use that QR code and come on in and talk to us about what you're experiencing. We're here to tell the stories of the people who have struggled and talk about the victories and unfortunately the losses, but most importantly, how we together can help people not make that decision to end their life. So I am joined by my family. Right now we're a little light, but usually we get a little bit heavier. So starting with the brand new mommy and the goddess of the grapes, Stephanie Samos. How you doing, Steph?
Good morning, Zach. Good morning, Mr. Z. I'm really happy to be here. This is going to be a great show today, something I can definitely relate to. So really happy to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Samos. I work with nonprofit organizations and people year-round to assist with fundraising through One Hope Wine. We are a cause-centered winery out of Napa Valley with over $9.7 million donated to date. And I specialize in fundraising, gifting, private wine events, and wine delivery. So when you pour a glass of wine or send a gift, it's really a great feeling to know that that bottle and that glass of wine that you're sipping on has made an impact for a nonprofit that is important to you. Actually, I worked a lot with rescues throughout the years with One Hope, and that's one of the things that really fills my cup personally because I love animals, So really excited to hear from Doc today. Also, Zach and I run a monthly show highlighting smaller nonprofit organizations to help them fundraise, but most importantly, to get their mission out there to more people. Patrick, who's on this show, is actually being highlighted this month, so you should definitely check that out on our Community Pay It Forward One Hope fundraiser page. He's amazing. I am also the co-founder of P&S Properties. We are a family-run business that is working to curb the homelessness crisis in our veteran communities. So we work with HUD-VASH recipients on housing and are working to build veteran communities while providing support and resources. So this mission, like what we have going on today, is really important to me because the last few years in working in the nonprofit space, I've learned a lot just about where our systems are lacking in support. So I believe that education and resources for those needing assistance is super, super important. And hopefully through this and through these efforts, we can help bring the number of losses in the other direction. Feel free to connect with me through my Linktree. All my socials are there. I wear many hats. Would love to chat with you.
Yeah, you forgot that you're a mother of five and you're in the middle of a move, and you've got all this time in the world, and you forget all that stuff. So I'm joking. One of the busiest people I know. So
busy is good.
Yeah, busy is good. So next up, we've got Brother Z, Mr. Z. How you doing?
Doing okay, and it's always good to be busy. And good morning, Zach, my brother man, and Steph, and of course the web detective Trevor. And hello, world, and hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Z, or you can call me Mr. Z. I am a web developer and I am also a consultant that specializes in helping nonprofits, veteran business owners, and entrepreneurs like yourselves who are looking to announce upcoming events, book online appointments, or perhaps accept donations and sell products and services without the use of eBay or Jeff Bezos. I also provide a free consultation to those who are looking to get started on their brand new website and to those that have an existing website, but they're not comfortable with the idea of making changes to the back end of their website, whether it's WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, and more. So, with that being said, if you are looking to maintain, modify, develop, or redevelop a custom website that is specifically catered to your needs, well, let's develop a website the world is waiting for. Back to you, brother man, Zach.
Thank you, Z. It's
Thank you.
great to see you again.
Good to
Trevor,
see you
how
too.
are you doing? Trevor, this one's going to be a great show for you. I know that you and your wife have many couple animals, and I know that this is something that is going to be right up your alley. So we're really grateful to have you here. Why don't you go ahead
Appreciate it.
and hit us up with your introduction, please?
Oh, I appreciate that. Well, thank you for having me and maybe my furry friends as well. If you should have asked in advance, I'd have brought them here and we could have shared the screen with them. I'm sure they'd love to yap about something, but when they're not yapping,
You
sorry.
say that, and look at this. She
Yeah,
appears.
She appears. There we go. You see, canines all round. That's what it is. The world should be run by canines. Because you certainly know who everybody is by the time you use the sense of your nose to find out if you're friendly or not by, and I won't say what you go and sniff. So with that, I'm going to let everybody know that I go by the Web Detective. I am also known as Trevor Gibbs, and I've been a marketer for 20 odd years. So through that time, I spent a lot of time focusing on helping nonprofits to bring their brand awareness to the market, or how they can actually engage with their current or future I was going to say people, but I guess it is their public. How do they engage with their public? Likewise with those small businesses. I've always been about building community, and that community is really about, if we can help you, I can help you, and we can help each other. And being the Web Detective today allows me to focus a lot on things that many small businesses and nonprofits forget, is about their compliance side of how they run their digital thumbprint. Like Mr. Z mentioned, we help them to get that exposure. We help them to generate revenue returns and revenue streams, which doesn't mean that we have to sit outside the local supermarket with a great big bucket asking for donations. Donations is work. It's not the way that you generate your revenue streams. And it works the same for a for-profit as much as for a non-profit. So that's about all I have to share with you this morning. A pleasure to see Stephanie here. And of course, I don't know why you've got a California bear trying to walk across your head, Zach. I thought you had a headache.
Oh, I do. But this hat was given to me by my granddaughter, so for Father's Day. So this is actually my podcasting hat now. So it looks like we've got Patrick who's popping in and out and in and out and in and out. So we'll get to Patrick when he does come on. I am extremely excited about our guest this week. I'm extremely excited about all guests, but her blog really made me think. And she was kind enough to allow us to share her blog on our website. So please go and find it. It's called The Other Side of Veterinary Medicine. This is Dr. Courtney Deer. How are you doing, Courtney?
Hi, I'm doing really great. Thanks for having me.
You brought up some amazing points in your blog about a problem that we outside the veterinary world we know nothing about, and that is the problems with mental health and suicides that you guys are having in your world.
Yeah, the veterinary community has a pretty high rate of suicide, and not a lot of people know that. Not only between the doctors, but the technicians. I
Yeah.
think some statistics say 4, 5, 6 times more likely than the general public to commit suicide or complete suicide.
Um, the first story that you talk about really, I mean, you opened that blog in the most perfect way, because you talked about an elderly man who brought in their dog, and this dog was the last thing he had with their lives.
Hmm.
That is one of the most difficult things in the world to do, isn't it?
A lot of people think that it is. It's definitely, it's a story that I see a lot. I work with a big elderly population just because of the location of my clinic. And a lot of times people will say, oh wow, this must be the hardest part of your day. And to me, giving that peaceful passing after all of those years of loving companionship that pet has given you, you can give them a passing that doesn't involve suffering, that still preserves their dignity. Is definitely, I feel like it's a gift. It's the last gift we can give them. A lot of the scenarios are very sad. I do hear a lot of stories about, this was my wife and I, this was our dog together, and I lost her 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, or 2 months ago, or this is my mother's dog. She's not with us anymore. There's definitely that sense of this is a family member, and this is a tie that I have to the rest of my family or my community. And that does make it difficult, but definitely not the most difficult part of our day. And that's kind of what I highlighted in my article, is about all the other difficulties that people don't see.
Is it more difficult when the individual tries to hold on to an animal that is in bad shape?
Yeah, that can definitely be hard to see. I work emergency, so I don't necessarily have that long-term relationship that a daytime or a general practitioner will have, where they've seen this pet since they were a puppy and now they're in their advanced stages. I think I can't imagine what that emotional burden looks like. But I do see some people who I think weren't ready, but the pet was. And that does make it a little bit more difficult. I'd say that 99.9% of the time, what I hear is I waited too long. And it's like 0.00001% who say that they wish that they had waited. So,
Um, what are some of the? I mean, if there was, in which I know that there's many different complaints, but if there was one of the major complaints, which is a huge cause of this problem, Doc, what would that be?
I would say probably the emotional fatigue that happens when you are practicing any sort of medicine. With us, our patients can't speak, so they can't tell us how they feel, and we have to kind of rely on the owners who don't have like the same type of training we do to identify problems. And then, it sometimes it comes down to money, where people are trying to like negotiate or emotionally blackmail you, and then kind of the whiplash from going from one to the other. You walk into one room and it's a happy, fluffy, happy puppy, and you're just doing kind of basic stuff. And then the next room you go into is an owner that's screaming at you because they had to wait 20 minutes, or, then you get that kind of that. And then the next room you go into, you have to reset and be like happy and ready to take care of that patient. And you just go through these whiplashes back and forth, where you don't get time to really sit there and address the emotions that were brought up in that situation. Like, anytime that someone screams and yells at you about things that are outside of your control, you should be able to take a step back and kind of see how that made you feel mentally, but you end up compartmentalizing it. Let's just shove that down. We'll deal with that later. Let's go into room 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And before you know it, you've been at work for 12 hours, and you went from the gamut of absolute happiness to utter devastation probably 5 or 6 times in that 12 hours. And you didn't even have time to sit down and really, deal with that. And I think that's a huge thing that not a lot of veterinarians are really good at, kind of putting into words what that feels like, what that means, what that looks like.
Do veterinarians, do you guys have like a medical doctor has a creed that they have to live by? Do you guys also have one?
Yeah, we do. We have the veterinarian's oath, which is pretty similar. Do no harm and uh, do what's best for the pet.
Would it, and I know this might sound like a weird question, but do you ever feel hamstrung by that?
Um, I would say that the limitations that are placed on us, both externally and then also kind of internally, are make a lot of difficulties. So you have this really complicated case and financial limitations, but they still want all the answers. Or you have people who are wanting human level care, instead of veterinary level care. So they want that MRI, that CT scan, um, and that can be really difficult from that side. And then there's also that internal obligation, like we have specialty in veterinary medicine a lot like human medicine, but not quite the same. Like you can go to your daytime practitioner and get vaccines, you can get surgery, you can get teeth removed, you could get, you get blood work performed, you get x-rays done in like a one-stop shop. And they're supposed to know everything. Whereas in human medicine, you would come in and say, I think I broke my leg. They would send you to someone else who would do the x-ray, who would send you to someone else to interpret it, would send you to someone else to fix it. And veterinarians are often a one-stop shop. And so there's this internal idea that I should know everything. I should be able to do all of this. And when you can't because of, owner limitations or your own knowledge, it hits really hard. You're supposed to be able to do this and you can't.
Well, with what you were just saying, one of the things that, and I want to give them a huge shout out. Um, Petco the other day, we took baby girl in to get neutered, and being bad pet parents, we didn't make sure she had that collar on at all time. Well, she ended up pulling the outer incision out and got pretty infected. Petco really worked with us, and they allowed us to come in. We paid the one fee, and then I was able to go back in a week later and pay the rest. So they really helped us out a lot of times. So and I know that that's probably something that they didn't want me to let out there, but I just want to thank them very much because it really does show the humanity of what you guys do. And I know that, and you and I have talked, Doc. You and I have talked a couple times. Your blog, in which I know this isn't the intention, but it really made me think about how I treated people, in which I was not mean to anybody, but how I was focused on myself and my dog Brody. About 2 years ago, how I was focused on us and kind of like, yeah, the rest of the world to hell with you. And your blog really opened my eyes because it is something that you kind of forget that what this is a huge part of your day. This is what you guys do. There's emotional but like you said, the emotional fatigue. I know I know how hard it is to help people all the time and take on all everyone's problems and how difficult that can be. So all my love goes out to you guys and everyone in your field. Stephanie's got a little one making a little bit of noise, so but she's got a
I'm good. Yeah, countdown to sleep time.
ah.
Doc, you mentioned, x-rays and MRIs and things like that. Do you ever come across situations, where the pet parents just don't have the financial means for whatever, the case is?
Yeah, multiple times a day. I know I mentioned that I worked in an elderly population. With that comes the fixed income. I hear that a lot. I'm on a fixed income. And so sometimes we just play the guessing game. This is the most likely cause of the symptoms. Let's do this, this, and this until you can follow up with your daytime practitioner who may be a little bit more cost effective than emergency. Emergency has a huge overhead between the skilled technicians, the skill of the doctor, keeping lights on 24 hours, having to have access to things like rattlesnake antivenom, which is hundreds of dollars a vial. You know, we've got that huge overhead, and so our prices are a lot higher. And I find myself very often saying, okay, do you have a daytime veterinarian? Can we just make them comfortable till the morning? Can we give them like anti-nausea medications? And then you can, you know, your dollar will go much further with your daytime vet in the morning. And then I do also have some clients who don't even have the exam fee, and they have a very, very, very sick animal, in which case my clinic is really great about doing things like humane euthanasia for no cost. You know, if the animal is truly suffering and we worry that there's, you know, even with all the money in the world, will we be able to save this pet? Probably not. And we offer that no cost. And then we also have social workers at my clinic that work with the Humane Society so that they can try and facilitate like a transfer to the Humane Society if it seems like something they'd be able to help with, and the Humane Society can take care of that pet. But that financial thing comes up all the time, multiple times a day, every day.
And let's go on ahead and real quick, let's give them a little bit of a push, because I know that there's an organization out there that can help with people in certain situations, and it's has basically, it's like a credit card that not only can you use it for your own health needs, but you can also use it for your pet's health needs. What's that called?
Yeah, Care Credit. It's, you know, it's a medical credit card, which is really helpful. If you don't have credit or you have very poor credit, that's definitely a roadblock. But I've seen some people get approved for enough so that they can end up paying for their visit, and then they make monthly payments towards them. I know some people, some like more corporate practices, like I don't work for a corporate practice, so I'm not sure what a lot of them do, but some of them have like in-house similar credit lines. And then also ScratchPay is another one. But in terms of true, like, you know, billing, I guess, or payment plans, I used to work for a clinic that did payment plans where they would allow a payment plan up to $160. You know, the exam fee and injection, just kind of a small amount of care. They had a 1% repayment rate. And so when they ended up consolidating, going corporate, they stopped doing it because they looked and they said, wow, like 1% of people pay back these payment plans. And I know I've heard from other practitioners who tried to do payment plans. They ended up saying, like, if I do this another day, we're going bankrupt. There's no way I can't pay the bills. I can't put the lights on. Just people don't repay them. And so having things like Care Credit and ScratchPay and all of those different options are kind of the only thing we have if we want to stay in business.
Okay. Hey, Patrick, I know you're driving, so please keep hands free and everything, but why don't you go on ahead and introduce yourself and ask any questions if you've had any questions pop up.
Oh, yeah. Well, first, there's just a lot you just talked about just now, and it just changed my whole mindset about a lot of things. But anyway, I'm Patrick Myers. I'm the founder of A Call Edge Global. What I do is I empower youth by giving them the tools through what we call the youth initiative, and we give them the tools to be able to do the things that they're called to do. If they want to work with the elderly, if they want to become a veterinarian, if they want to do whatever they want to do to help the community, we want to give them the ability to see that they can make an impact in the world today, exactly where they're at the age they're at. Another thing also is I am also the founder of Consuming Fire Media, and what we do is podcasts. A different I'm trying to pay attention here, man. There was just this beautiful deer I just saw running through the field over here. It was just really cool. But anyway, with these podcasts, we have the Pitmen's podcast, getting ready to launch another one called Voices of the Fire. Some other ones that are just focused on giving back to the community. and helping men that are going through different issues with their lives, and how to as men and through both of the most better, and that's Pit Ministry fire for to take for the community to come on and tell their testimonies about how they went through very trying times in their lives, and how God helped them through those things. And so we have about 3 more other podcasts that are coming up, and another one is going to be part of the youth initiative, where it'll be a youth-led podcast where they'll be talking about the issues of today and what they're going through, and they'll be interviewing and hosting that show themselves. And so that's what I'm doing right now.
We're really hoping to get those podcasts right here on the PAC channel. We're working to make sure that happens. So
yeah, I got you, man. We are definitely going to be doing that.
So
Dr. Courtney, so 2 years ago, right, I took my life, right? And one of the things that like was like one of the linchpins that just set the dominoes was right when COVID happened. I had to put my dog down myself, because like nobody would take any animals or any of that. My dog just got sick all of a sudden, and whatnot, and just we were having to take her, hold her up to use the bathroom. She just dropped weight so fast, and I called everywhere, and it was like, we're not taking anybody, because like that's when COVID first started, and everybody was just, I don't know, it was just crazy. And I remember just being so angry, because like what that took out of me to like, you know, but I can't, like, knowing what it did to me mentally at that point, and seeing the stuff that you guys have to go through, is you have to go through that every day. Like you're saying, like I never even realized, I never thought about the fact that you have to change rooms, and you're going from like all these different emotional states. That right there kind of it really made me realize, because in the stuff that I do, that's literally, and you're having a conversation, like some kid off the next second, you know, someone's grateful for what you do, the next second someone's like, you didn't do enough, and I never thought about it that way. And just like what you guys have to go through in that really just like, because I'm not gonna lie, I was very bitter. Nobody, I had to do that myself. I was so angry. And then when I used to go to the vet for my dog about different things, why are the prices so high and stuff like that, and just all these different things that if you don't understand the people around you and what's going on, you can have a very negative view, because a lot of times you're thinking because those prices are so high that you guys are just making all this money, and you don't really, that's all you care about and stuff like that. Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard those kind of things, and I've said those things, to be really honest, which I want to apologize, like at the very moment, just like for having a heart like that, but not understanding the people that are taking care of us in this field, in this area. And because my heart just changed so much, because when you're talking about like, you in reality, like if you guys really did this for free, and that's one of the things that I struggle with the things that I do. If you did those things for free and people couldn't pay, like you really can't keep the lights on. And most, like I would say, most people that's in that field have a very, very just loving and caring heart and want to help everybody. But then you have the practical realities of keeping the lights on, feeding your family, and then taking care of people that are just that are suffering and in great need, and like how that has to take a toll, you know. And I just want to thank you guys for like what you do. Like I just feel very ashamed of thinking that those ways, but never actually once really talking to a veterinarian or something like that, and just getting to know their story and what they do. And it's really changed my whole mindset and my whole heart about these kind of things.
Well, Patrick, I just got to say, I hope you didn't just flip your car. So you went sideways on us. I hope that wasn't that you flipped your car. So you ended up having a little bit of a rough spot there hitting internet. Doc, that's one of the things that you mentioned in your blog was about exactly what he was talking about, that you guys are tied to these drug companies and stuff like that. You're not tied to those drug companies. That's not something that you guys do. You're trying to do this in the best interest of the animal, right?
Yeah, I think if you asked any veterinarian, if you could live the life you lead now, you know, which is for a lot of veterinarians kind of bare bones, but you could do all this for free, would you? And I would say most veterinarians would say, if I could do this for free and not have to worry about my, you know, $250,000 to $500,000 of student loans, absolutely. I always joke that my dream, if I hit the lottery, you know, we all play that game, is I would have the parvo van where I would go around and give free parvo vaccines to like low income areas or areas that don't have access to veterinary care. I think, Patrick, you brought up like a lot of really good points about kind of both sides of this kind of tug and pull in the veterinary community. You know, you're talking about COVID. During COVID, when all of the schools and everything shut down, who stayed home to take care of the kids? The women in the family. The veterinary community is overwhelmingly female. Also, so we've lost a huge amount of our technical staff because veterinary technicians, veterinary assistants get paid like $12 to $15 an hour. So if you've got childcare that you suddenly need to have because your kids aren't in school anymore, who's going to stay home? The person who makes the least. So I ended up losing a fairly decent amount of my staff because they're like, I have to stay home and take care of my kids because schools aren't open, daycares aren't open. And so then I didn't have the staff to see the patients that I needed to. The other thing is we saw visits in the veterinary community increase exponentially. I'd say on average pre-COVID, I would see maybe 15 cases over 12 hours. During COVID, I was averaging 35 to 40 cases in a 12-hour shift, and that was like an instant overnight change. So we not only saw that we had less support through both our support staff and then also veterinarians themselves. You know, the average veterinary income is like, I think the last time I looked was $95,000 a year, with the average student loan burden being about $250,000 for a veterinarian. You know, if you're going to have someone stay home, it's going to be that person. You know, they're not really contributing in the household, and the cost of childcare often way overlaps that. And so we had this increase of things that we're seeing. People were working from home and they were just staring at their pets and suddenly recognizing a lot of things that sometimes are normal. You know, I saw a lot of, my cat sleeps 20 hours a day. Yes, that's normal. But also people being home stressed pets out. And so I saw a lot more stress related illnesses like cats with urinary obstructions. And so COVID kind of put all of the issues that were already simmering in vet med to a head. Veterinary technicians pre-COVID had a 25% turnover rate, meaning that within 5 years, 50 to 75% of vet techs completely leave the field because they're like, I don't make enough money, this isn't worth it, kind of everything. And then COVID happened and it accelerated it. I think a bunch of veterinarians in my area retired. They were like, I'm not dealing with this. I'm already at retirement age. I'm walking out. I'm going to sell my practice to a corporation. And so everything you're talking about, Patrick, was just this kind of everything that we were feeling on our side was there's no support staff. I'm seeing twice as many cases, sometimes 3 times as many cases. You know, and it all just kind of came to a head during COVID. And I think my GP practice that's attached to our emergency clinic had about a 1 month wait to be seen, whereas previously it was like a week if it was the busy season. So, a lot of the stuff you talked about really, really hit home for me, because I was like, yeah, I was on the other side. I was the one saying, I'm so sorry you had to wait here for 8 to 12 hours, but like I'm drowning, while still keeping that smiling face on and watching all the technicians leave and the support staff leave, and then people being upset. But I think what you said about understanding the other side, I think, is a lesson we could use all day, every day. That you go to any sort of customer service, and if you're not getting your needs met right away, just always having that grace. Doesn't necessarily have to be just for veterinary medicine. I think it can be for your whole life. And you said you work a lot with youths. Same thing. You don't know what their story is, and you always have to approach them from a loving, caring perspective from the get-go. And it's just a lesson I think we can extend to everything in life, and hopefully also your veterinarian.
It is. This is both in the medical field and in your field. A lot of times, you as a patient, you do feel like a number. And what you just gave us a little bit of an explanation on why that is, because there's a lot of time. Look, you can't maintain a staff as much as you love your staff. You can't maintain them if you can't pay for them. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to you, because once again, something else you brought up is, how am I supposed to pay somebody when I'm barely making enough to take care of me? And Patrick, you're right. It is one of those things that look, the service industry on its, we are so vicious to them a lot of times. Call centers, all these people that we have to talk to. If we don't hear what we want to hear, we take it out onto them. Well, they're the ones that we're talking to right at that moment. So, Z, brother, you had a question.
I sure did. And thank you, my brother from another mother. Very nice to meet you, Dr. Courtney. And I heard a lot of great things about you, and great job on that blog and for sharing the hard truth of what goes on in the veterinary world. I don't want to say it's a thankless job, but it's not very appreciated as much as the other jobs that are out there. And I have to give you kudos for announcing what you would do with $1 million or more, just going around giving those shots. And it's just good to make that difference in the world without having to put on a smiling face when you're just up into here and keeping your nose up, helping people first. It's tough. You're always the person that's serving your community, like Zach, Patrick, Steph, and the web detective Trevor, just doing the best we can to help out others. But who are the ones saving you, Dr. Courtney? Who is the one that is understanding, oh yeah, I know you're busy, and we've been waiting 18 hours. This is ridiculous. Well, there's a lot of things that goes on behind the doors here. And it's not easy to explain to certain people that there's a lot that goes on beyond just helping your pets. I can't understand what you're going through, but it's just good to know that we have a doctor who is a veterinarian who is telling us what really goes on behind closed doors to make us appreciate all the efforts that you're doing. And it's disheartening to hear that a lot of veterinarians today who grew up loving animals, they had their stuffed animals when they were kids, pretending to be veterinarians, only to find out that the hard truth is it's going to cost you $250,000 or more just to get the education, only to pay off those loans while only getting, maybe, if you're lucky, $100,000 or $90,000 a year, if there's an opportunity for that veterinarian. So I just want to say kudos to you, Dr. Courtney, for pushing through despite all the obstacles that are getting in your way. And from all of us, we appreciate the hard work that you're doing to bring awareness to the animals that need help, and for us who are just learning more how animals think and feel. So I just want to start off by saying that, Dr. Courtney.
Thank you.
So I had a question. You're very welcome. And I had a question. I know this is common knowledge. I'm not a pet owner, but oftentimes I have to pet sit for friends and family. how would I know, or how would anyone know if there's a cat or a dog, or I guess an iguana that has a toothache? How would I know the symptoms? Do
Yeah.
they bite on one side? Yes, Dr. Courtney.
Yeah. So whenever you're talking about like illness in an animal, I think it's hard when you are not someone who's there every day, all day.
True.
Because if you think of animals like dogs, cats, iguanas, they are predators, but also prey animals. And
Mm,
so showing weakness or illness, especially around a stranger, is not really in their MOs. Cats are notorious, especially for hiding their illness until it's like very, very progressive. But if you're talking about, dental health in particular, one would be to just look in the mouth. Yeah, I think I've got a great photo album of cases and what we call trench mouth, where the mouth is just nothing but disease and decay. It's fairly common in older pets, especially if they're not getting like dental care. So one would be smell. You can smell something on their breath that's not right. Sometimes they chew on one side of their mouth, or they kind of take their time very slowly eating. Sometimes you'll see swelling on the side of the mouth, like if they're getting an abscess. So there's a lot of different things, and they kind of show it different ways. Cats will hide when they're sick, but cats will also hide when they're nervous. So is that cat hiding because you're not mom and dad, or is that cat hiding because it's ill? So it's really tough to know kind of where some of those symptoms are coming from, and then also what to look for in particular if that's not your pet and you're not there every day, to say this is normal behavior versus this is abnormal.
thank
Mr.
you, Doctor.
Detective Trevor, do
Thank you,
you
Dr.
have any
Courtney.
questions?
Oh, I probably have more questions than I probably should have. And I do appreciate what Dr. Courtney does, and I understand her elements. And I'm going to come this from another side, because not being the person that originated from the US, having seen veterinarians work in two different other countries and the systems that they use, I understand the problems that she faces, because I think you've all heard me say this phrase, and I think Dr. Courtney is really going to understand this. Anything you say or anything you do means somebody can sue you. And like any medical industry, that is a prime objective, and that is where a lot of the costs are going to be hidden, because again, pharmaceutical companies, doesn't matter if they're pharmaceuticals for animals or humans, they're probably even actually the same pharmaceutical companies, just two different divisions. And that's why that medicines and treatments cost so much, and they don't discount for animals. If anything, they probably pile it on a little bit more, thinking that people are more compassionate about paying for medicines for their animals, and end up by then slightly overcharging. So yeah, we could debate that probably for another 2 hours, and I don't think we'd even resolve that problem. I think Dr. Courtney, I think that's probably one of the biggest problems that you face. Is that not true?
Um, in terms of like how litigious the United States is, I would say that that definitely is a problem, but it's not as big as it is in the human field for a lot of reasons. Pets are considered property. And so if you're trying to sue, for example, a veterinarian to get the cost of the pet, you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars in civil court to get back $400 or $500. So when it comes to the more like litigious aspect of things, I don't think we worry about it nearly as much. We also have independent like liability insurance that we pay for, which obviously isn't as big as in human medicine, and it's completely separate from like our licenses and in our own practice, just because again, it's just not what are people suing for. It's just how much they paid, which if you compare human medicine and veterinary medicine, fixing a broken leg in vet med, maybe like $2,500, $3,200. In human medicine, you're talking about tens of thousands, sometimes up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on if you needed to stay in the hospital or not. So the cost difference when you're talking about suing or malpractice is astronomical. And then I've got some vet friends who are from the UK, and having they've got more like the healthcare there. They don't have to worry about human healthcare costs as much as we do in America. And so they said that people are a lot more prone to complain about the cost of veterinary medicine in places like the EU, the UK, because they don't realize how much they're paying for their own healthcare costs. Whereas in America, we are very well aware of the astronomical amount of money we pay for our own healthcare. So we get a little bit less of those. Well, when I go to the doctor, I don't pay anything. Whereas my friends who are from like the EU or the UK are like, no, they have no idea. So
That's so
it's definitely
true.
different.
Yeah. And that's, like I say, is that cost element when you come across that is such a shock for comparing one country to another, or even when you think about how much is being put on to the vet. Say, well, okay, you studied, you have a qualification, you've got all the implements that you need to use, and like you say, a broken limb on an animal is, if you judge that by size, is a lot less. One of the stories that I have, which I thought was rather amusing, that I had a dog which had bad kidney problems, so that affected her mouth, which affected the gums and all the rest of it. And the price of doing a checkup or a cleaning of the teeth and dental work was almost comparable for what it was for a human, or sometimes even more. And it's like, wow, that's interesting, because the tooth size of a dog is much smaller than that, and that's where I came from. Where some things seem to cost more in relationship, and that was mainly because I was talking about dental work. But yeah, you're
but
so
were
right.
you
In
under?
the UK, we're fortunate.
Yeah, and you're not under anesthesia in human medicine for your dental work, whereas veterinary clients or patients are under anesthesia for their dental work. So they also, don't brush their teeth. And so when you're talking about doing dental procedures in animals, I mean, I've seen people spend hours doing them just because they're pulling chunks of hair out from between the teeth, having to remove entire like 4, 5, 6 teeth because they're just rotted. So cost being comparable just shows you how much of a, I don't want to say like a bargain it is, but you're completely under anesthesia, intubated, monitored. You're not just awake while someone's putting a few numbing shots into your mouth. They're completely out.
Oh yeah, different procedure,
Mm-hmm.
but as a human or a pet owner, it's the thing that you don't seem to see that often. It's like, come on, their tooth is like 2 millimeters wide and 5 millimeters high. Look at my great big front tooth, and because unless
I'd
you're
love to
in
show
it,
you a picture of a canine I removed the other day. It was about this big from a dog. It's
Oh wow.
So the roots, he got into a fight and his tooth was doing this. So I had to remove it on an emergency basis, and the entire tooth. And this is a 70-pound dog, so it's a quarter of a human, about this big.
Well, yeah. See, this is the other thing that I wasn't saying. I was thinking about the small dogs that we had at the time, but if I was to compare that with my wife, who used to have Rottweilers, yeah, she used to have an 80-pound Rottweiler sort of thing, or 180, sorry. It was a huge beast, and his head was as big as mine when it sat there on the table. So you can imagine his teeth were far bigger than mine at that point. So all relative, I guess.
Stephanie, you just brought up a really good point. You want to go ahead and talk about that?
Yeah, no, as we're on the dental topic, our thoroughbred, our horse, he needs his teeth done twice a year. And we have a vet that comes specifically for that. She's fantastic, Dr. Meg. She may even watch this at some point. She sees that we have a vet on. She's amazing. But for horses, it's so important. The dental care is so important to keep, weight on them, to make sure that they can chew their grain and graze properly and all of those things. And I know, Doc, before the show, you mentioned you have training with large animals too. So really cool on the dental topic.
Dr. Courtney, one of the things that Z was talking about is who supports you guys. You introduced me to a wonderful program. Can you tell us a little bit about Not One More Vet?
Yeah, Not One More Vet was actually started by a veterinarian, Dr. Journey. She's a neurologist. And she saw the great need that existed in the veterinary community just between like the high suicide rates And then just like kind of the lack of support. You know, I'm lucky that my clinic has a social worker that we can work with, but not every clinic has that. So they work with, you know, they've got different programs, they have different outreach, they have a Facebook page that I've seen some people reach out to say, hey, I'm not in a good place. Is there like, you know, is there someone I can talk to? And this community just floods to them to try and help them. And then they also talk a lot about like, you know, risks of substance use disorders, you know, like you're seeing on here, or the trauma that we can have in veterinary medicine. So they have webinars, they've got different sorts of support that's there. And it's just a really amazing organization that's really stepped up and was created by veterinarians to try and support the community and give them resources. And we're not a community that's good at asking for help, to be completely honest. You know, we've spent our whole lives being told that we're a certain, you know, the strength that comes from just, you know, shove it down. If you're too weak, you shouldn't be in this field. Like, so this was a huge change for the way that our community kind of treats not only ourselves, but each other.
What are there other organizations out there? Or is this really one of those that saw the need and became the forefront when it comes to it?
I personally believe it's one of the few that works really well. We do have the AVMA, which is the American Veterinary Medical Association, and they're supposed to be kind of in our best interest. You know, they do things like help with legislation, but a lot of veterinarians really felt like they weren't doing enough, or were kind of missing a big portion of what the real problem was. And so while they are another organization, I don't think that they help out nearly as much as something like Not One More Vet. And I think when Not One More Vet was created, there's also like Not One More Vet Tech. They've got a few different kind of sister organizations that work with the vet field as a whole. It was a huge need that had to be filled. And they were like, if no one's going to do it, I'm going to do it.
I love hearing that, because, you know, it's just one more thing that what we're trying to prove is that if there's a need, there's always somebody who's out there. Hey, Doc, one of the things that you and I talked about, you, myself, and Stephanie talked about prior to coming on air, is there is excessive heat. You're in Arizona, so you are ground one for the heat problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You're
going
seeing
on day 24 of 110 plus temperatures.
Yep. And you mentioned that you are seeing a lot of posts on social media with people giving false information about the care of your dogs, and you wanted to take a chance to make sure that you were clearing this up and give correct information. So I'd like to give you the floor to go on ahead and do that, please.
Yeah, this time of year when we see a lot of these heat strokes or heat exhaustions, kind of the main thing would be prevention. You know, if it's hot outside, don't let your pet be unsupervised outside. If you have like doggy doors or anything where they have access to the outside, maybe limit that a little bit during these hotter times. And then if you think your dog is experiencing like heat exhaustion or heat stroke, you can always check their temperatures. You can either do it rectally or like in their armpit. They don't tolerate it in their mouth or their ear. Normal temperature is 100 to 102.5. So if you see that 103, 104, 105, those are definitely signs that we're getting hot. Cool them down. You know, a fan, water. I've seen some posts say that you shouldn't use ice water. Honestly, anything to bring their temperature back down to normal. Once it gets to 103, then stop cooling. Always bring them to the vet if you're worried, because heat stroke can be deadly very quickly. They basically aren't able to clot their blood anymore because they get too hot, and you can see them bleed into their brain and kind of different other places, and they can pass away from it. I actually lost a patient to it a few days ago from heat stroke, where the owner wasn't aware of the signs and just didn't bring them in on time. I've seen some people say to give them like lemon juice in their mouth. I wouldn't do anything that would stress them out, and there's really no benefit to lemon juice in the mouth. They say it helps to break up phlegm. I'm not sure where that came from. Some people say to use like alcohol, like rubbing alcohol on their paws. We've gone away from this in veterinary medicine because we know that it can cause sloughing of the paws, because it kind of diverts the blood flow away from it to kind of simplify it. So if you think your dog's experiencing heat stroke, bring them inside, cool them down. You can douse them in cool or cold water if you have it, and then straight to the vet. Worst case scenario, the vet takes a look and says, they look great, nothing to worry about, and that's what we want to prevent them from getting to the point where it's beyond help, beyond return.
Dr. Courtney Deer, I want to thank you so much. This show lasts way too, not near long enough when we have guests on that bring as much value as our guests do. And you definitely fall into that category. I want to thank you so much for everything. Please tell people how people can read your blog outside of my website. You can find her blog on our website, The Other Side of Veterinary Medicine. But how else can they get a hold of you?
So I do a lot of social media outreach on both Instagram and TikTok, mostly to educate owners, but also some other veterinarians about some different topics that come up in studies. But on Instagram, I'm er.dvm. So ER like emergency.dvm, like doctorate veterinary medicine. And then on TikTok, it's just ERDVM, no dot. So those are the main ways that I reach out to people to kind of show what I'm doing. I'm working on a new blog post that's about the cost of veterinary medicine. I'm not sure if I want to title it The Rising Cost of Vet Med, but kind of talking about some of the things we talked about today. And then also what Trevor was talking about, the cost behind the medications and how they've increased. So that's next on my list, but I'm not sure what I have planned after that. But mostly on Instagram and TikTok are the best ways to find me.
Well, if you would like to share it out to our audience, I would be more than willing to put it on our website. So
thank you. I appreciate
let's
that.
Let's go through the family. Stephanie, what is something that you learned today?
I just have such an appreciation for the vets that we deal with, like even more. Like I loved them before, but even more now, just hearing more from your side of it. So thank you so much for sharing your side. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mr. Z.
Besides cats being too proud to show any weakness, and I think it's great that veterinarians are getting the support that they need. Thank you.
All right, Patrick.
Z, you always crack me up, man.
Thank you.
Thank you for changing my heart and my mind about so many different things and just challenging the way I think or have thought. I grew a lot today because of the knowledge you shared, and I am very, very grateful for that. And I actually really feel blessed, and I guess it just increased my love, which is always something I'm searching for as a man. And so thank you for that. And yeah, I just feel rich today coming on and talking.
Trevor.
Well, I think the main thing that I really learned today is that I appreciate what Dr. Courtney does and highlighting the industry in which he's in. It's not so clear cut from a pet owner of what the life existence is like. So I really commend you for coming here today and sharing that with us. That's really highlighted a different aspect, and to know that it's a industry which is fraught with a lot of worry and a lot of stress. I appreciate you opening up and sharing that with us. And at any time, and I say this on behalf of Zach, if you would like to reach out to any one of us, we're here. And I'd love to know more and share more with you. So thank you.
And I'm just going to simply say that I think the one thing that we've all learned today, and I think it's very, very apparent to all of us, is that, you know what? We need to be patient with everyone because we don't know what they've gone through in a day. So next time that, hey, look, you're in a stressful situation and that's understood. All right. But let's make sure that we always remember that the person that you're talking to, the person before you could have been a real pain in the ass. So let's make sure that we take it easy and we concentrate on them and we try to make it better for everyone. So, Dr. Courtney, I want to thank you again. Please reach out and find her information and read her blog. For the family, my name is Zach Clayton. You've been listening to Footprints Forward. We thank you very much, and we hope that you join us next week for another episode as we try to make lives better.